Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today, I'm going to go my review of AEW's All In. Starting off the evening, or starting off the show, I should say, we go into the 0 hour. It is MJF teaming up with Adam Cole versus Aussie Open for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. I thought this was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Aussie Open keeping the pace of the match. MJF then hits a kangaroo kick. The crowd goes wild. And then MJF and Cole ultimately hit a double clothesline, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match and new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions are MJF and Adam Cole. Hats off to MJF and Adam Cole for getting the win in that matchup and becoming the new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. After that, Mercedes Moné was shown sitting in the crowd during All In, which I thought was pretty cool to see Mercedes in attendance for All In. We go into our next match on the 0 hour. It is Jack Perry defending the FTW Championship against Hook. Jack enters the match in a limousine, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Jack and Hook then fight on the stage. Jack Perry then hits a suplex on the limousine. But before he hit that suplex, after he hit that suplex, Jack then hits a Rolling Thunder on the limo on Hook. And then Hook ultimately hits a Fisherman Suplex on Jack Perry through the windshield. But before Hook hit that Fisherman Suplex, Jack Perry had made a comment pertaining to the glass windshield that was in the limousine. Said it was real glass and give me a break and everything else like that. Now this comment stems from an altercation that Jack Perry had with CM Punk, I believe it was a week ago on Collision, where Jack Perry wanted to do a spot in a match that retained to actual real glass. And CM Punk had approached him and said it's probably best that he does not do that. So it looks like we get this match here. Jack Perry makes that comment, and then Hook hits a Fisherman Suplex on Jack Perry that puts him through the windshield of the limousine. Perry then gets up, hits a draping DDT off the railing. Perry then was keeping the pace of the match, with Hook hitting a T-bone suplex on Perry. Hook then hits Perry with a trash can, and then Hook applies the Red Run. And your winner of the match and new FTW champion is Hook. A couple things I want to say about this match, man. Number one, solid matchup. And honestly, for what it's worth, 0 hour was absolutely awesome, in my honest opinion. From the opening matchup with MJF and Cole versus Aussie Open for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships, and we get Jack Perry defending the FTW Championship against Hook. It was a solid match, man. And I will touch more on the basis of what Jack Perry said towards the end of this podcast, because there was an altercation that happened at All In between Jack Perry and CM Punk. Both of them had to be separated. Supposedly CM Punk had choked Jack Perry backstage. A lot of news are going to start coming out here as of late with this whole incident between Jack Perry and CM Punk. There's an investigation going on right now backstage between CM Punk and Jack Perry and what all went down behind backstage and All In. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of All In. It is Samoa Joe versus CM Punk for the Real World's Championship. Number one, I thought it was a good match, man. Back and forth matchup between Samoa Joe and CM Punk, with Punk hitting a Hurricane Rana on Samoa Joe. Joe then throws Punk through the announce table. It looked absolutely brutal. Joe then was keeping the pace of the match. Joe then hits an enziguri on Punk. Punk then mocks Hogan with the leg drop. Samoa Joe then mocks Hogan as well. Joe then hits a power slam on Punk. Joe then applies an STF on Punk, but Punk breaks the hold, and then Punk ultimately hits a Pepsi plunge off the top rope on Samoa Joe, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is CM Punk. Hats off to CM Punk for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a 6-man tag team matchup. It is Jay White teaming up with Juice Robinson and Takeshita versus Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, and Adam Page. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the Elite keeping the pace of the match. Takeshita and Ibushi both exchange in the middle of the ring. Omega and Juice Robinson also exchange in the middle of the ring. Page then hits a fallaway slam on Jay. Ibushi then hits a standing moonsault in the middle of the ring on Jay White. Omega and Takeshita then both exchange, with Takeshita hitting a Blue Thunder Bomb on Omega. Page then hits a fallaway slam off the top rope. Page then hits a moonsault to the outside, taking out the guns. Takeshita then hits a jumping knee on Ibushi that looked absolutely brutal. Page then hits a buckshot lariat on Takeshita. Omega then hits a V-trigger. And then Takeshita ultimately hits a roll-up, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Takeshita, Juice Robinson, and Jay White. Hats off to Takeshita, Juice Robinson, and Jay White for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the AEW Tag Team Championships. It is FTR defending the AEW Tag Team Championships against the Young Bucks. FTR come out into the ring, pay respects to Brody Lee, Jay Briscoe, and Bray Wyatt. The match itself, it was a great match. Back and forth matchup between FTR and the Young Bucks, with Wheeler hitting a power slam. FTR and Young Bucks then both exchange in the middle of the ring, but the Young Bucks are keeping the pace of the match. Dax then gets up, hits multiple German suplexes. Matt Jackson then hits multiple Northern Lights suplexes. Dax then hits a slingshot powerbomb. Dax then hits a pile driver in the middle of the ring. Matt then hits a pile driver of his own in the middle of the ring. FTR then hit a BTE trigger. FTR then hit a Shatter Machine for a near fall. Matt Jackson then hits a super kick for a near fall, but Young Bucks then hit a Shatter Machine on Dax. Young Bucks then hit a BTE trigger for a near fall, but FTR ultimately hit another Shatter Machine on Nick Jackson. Pins for the 3. And your winners of the match, and still AEW Tag Team Champions, are FTR. Hats off to FTR for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the Stadium Stampede matchup. It is Jon Moxley teaming up with Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Ortiz, and Santana versus Orange Cassidy, the Best Friends, Penta, and Eddie Kingston. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Moxley hitting a paradigm shift on Penta. Santana then hits a powerbomb on Penta through the chair structure in the ring. Penta looks to be hurt. Penta then was taken backstage and carted off. Moxley then hits a brainbuster on Orange Cassidy through a chair. Ortiz and Santana then throw Trent through a ladder. Moxley then hits a pile driver on the steel steps. It looked absolutely brutal. Sue is here. Penta then returns as the evil Penta. Penta then ultimately hits a Canadian Destroyer off the ladder. It looked absolutely brutal. Claudio then hits a giant swing on Orange Cassidy. Trent Beretta then hits a suplex off the top through the table. Orange Cassidy then hits multiple orange punches for a near fall. Orange then wraps his hands in broken glass and then goes for another orange punch on Claudio. Pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Orange Cassidy, the Best Friends, Penta, and Eddie Kingston. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a fatal 4-way for the AEW Women's Championship. It is Saraya versus Britt Baker versus Hikaru Shida versus Toni Storm. Number one, the entrances for Saraya and Toni Storm were absolutely awesome. Saraya ended up coming out to the ring with her entire family, which was absolutely awesome. The match itself was a really good match. Back and forth matchup with all ladies involved, with Toni accidentally hitting Paige's mom that was sitting ringside. This ends up infuriating Paige. Paige ends up attacking Toni Storm. Paige and Toni Storm then both exchange in the middle of the ring. Ruby Soho comes down to the ring to try to break up the fight between Paige and Toni Storm. But Toni Storm ends up attacking Ruby Soho. Saraya then hits Toni Storm with spray paint, which allows Saraya to hit the finish. Pins for the 3. And your winner of the match and new AEW Women's Champion is Saraya. Hats off to Saraya for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a coffin match. It is Swerve teaming up with Christian Cage versus Darby Allin and Sting. Again, thought this was a great match. The entrance for Sting and Darby Allin was absolutely awesome. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Darby and Sting keeping the pace of the match. Christian then tapes Darby's hands behind his back, but Darby hits a springboard moonsault in the middle of the ring on Christian Cage. Darby then hits a stunner. Sting then hits a leg drop off the apron through a table. Luchasaurus is here. He ends up attacking Darby Allin and Sting. Nick Wayne is here as well to attack Luchasaurus. Luchasaurus then hits a chokeslam on Nick Wayne that looked absolutely brutal. Darby then hits a coffin drop off the top rope, missed, and landed on the casket to the outside. It looked absolutely brutal. Sting then hits a Stinger Splash. Sting then applies a Scorpion Deathlock, but the hold is broken. Sting then hits a Scorpion Death Drop on the casket. Darby then hits a coffin drop on Swerve while Swerve's in the casket. Swerve then gets tossed in the casket. Darby closes the lid, and your winners of the match are Darby Allin and Sting. Hats off to Darby Allin and Sting for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Will Ospreay versus Chris Jericho. Jericho's entrance, again, was awesome. He had a live performance with his band Fozzy to perform his entrance song, which I thought was absolutely awesome. The match itself, I thought was a great match, if not the sleeper match of the night for me. Back and forth matchup between Ospreay and Jericho. Ospreay was keeping the pace of the match. Ospreay and Jericho then both exchanged in the middle of the ring, with Jericho hitting a springboard dropkick on Ospreay. Jericho then hits a release German suplex off the apron on Ospreay that looked absolutely brutal. Ospreay then hits a handspring Pele kick on Jericho. Ospreay then hits a standing shooting star press on Jericho as well. Jericho then gets up, hits a Hurricane Rana off the top rope on Ospreay. Ospreay then gets up, hits a shooting star press with Jericho leaning over the ropes. Jericho then hits a code breaker on Ospreay, and Ospreay hits a Os Cutter on Jericho. Jericho then gets up, applies a Walls of Jericho on Ospreay, but Guevara then hits Ospreay with a bat. Ospreay ends up somehow breaking the hold. Ospreay then hits a standing Spanish fly on Jericho in the middle of the ring, but Jericho gets up, hits a code breaker on Ospreay. Ospreay and Jericho then both exchange in the middle of the ring once again, but Jericho hits a low blow on Ospreay with the referee being distracted. Jericho then hits a Judas Effect for a near fall. Ospreay then hits a Stormbreaker on Jericho for a near fall. And then Ospreay ultimately hits another Stormbreaker on Jericho, pins him for the 3. And your winner of the match is Will Ospreay. Hats off to Will Ospreay for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the AEW Trios Championships. It is the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn versus the House of Black. House of Black come to the ring paying tribute to Bray Wyatt. The match itself was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the Acclaimed keeping the pace of the match. Billy Gunn then hits a Famouser. Malachi Black then hits a Fade of Black for a near fall. But Max Caster ultimately hits a mic drop, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match and new AEW Trios Champions are the Acclaimed. Hats off to the Acclaimed for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of AEW's All In. It is for the AEW World Championship. It is MJF versus Adam Cole. Number one, I thought MJF's entrance was absolutely awesome. The match itself between MJF and Cole was absolutely great. Back and forth matchup between MJF and Cole. MJF and Cole wear the Better Than You Bebe t-shirts to celebrate their tag team. But Cole was keeping the pace of the match. Cole then hits a brainbuster off the steps on MJF that looked absolutely brutal. Cole then hits a tombstone on the announce table on MJF. MJF and Cole then both exchange. Cole then hits a Canadian Destroyer on MJF. MJF and Cole then hit a double clothesline. Ref counts to 3. Referee says it's a double countout. Ref says that this match ends in a draw. Cole then grabs a microphone and says he wants 5 more minutes. MJF says that they will wrestle until there's a winner. MJF then hits a heat seeker on Cole for a near fall. Cole then hits a straight jacket German suplex off the apron on MJF. Cole then hits a Panama Sunrise off the apron. Cole then goes for another Panama Sunrise on MJF, but instead Cole hits a Panama Sunrise on the referee. Ref is down. MJF then pulls out the Dynamite Diamond ring, goes to hit Cole, but MJF takes the ring off, decides not to hit Cole with the Dynamite Diamond ring. Roderick Strong is here. Strong ends up attacking MJF. Cole then hits a Panama Sunrise on MJF. Strong then throws Cole the title. Strong then tells Cole that he is his best friend and to use that title against MJF. Cole then gets mad, goes to hit MJF with the title, but instead throws the belt away, which allows MJF to hit a roll-up on Cole, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is MJF. After the match, MJF tries to reconcile with Adam Cole since they are best friends. MJF then hands Cole the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships, but Cole throws the belt away. And then MJF and Cole ultimately hug it out at the end of the match. A couple of things I want to say about All In, man. I know I was the biggest critic of All In because I didn't think that, All In was going to live up to the hype of what it was going to be. And I'm not going to sit here and say I was completely wrong. But what I will say is this. As far as what All In has done and what it did for the fans and what it's done for AEW, I think it was great. I think in that aspect, sure, I was wrong. But from the business aspect of it, yeah. I mean, what AEW did with All In at Wembley, selling almost 82,000 seats. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, there's even some people out there saying, oh, well, they didn't completely sell out. Look, man, it was one of the highest paid pay-per-view buyouts that they've done. Having 81,000 people, almost 82,000 people to be exact, for an AEW event, breaks records. I mean, they broke records, Sunday. Absolutely. And to be honest with you, looking at the stage structure and how it was set up, it kind of reminded me of SummerSlam way back in the day. when SummerSlam was in England. It was a great show. I believe it was the main event. I believe it was Bret Hart versus Davey Boy Smith for the WWE Championship or the Intercontinental Championship. I think it was the WWE Championship. But again, it was a great main event. And it kind of gave me, the way the stage structure was set up for All In, it was kind of the same. I kind of felt the same if it was SummerSlam years ago. But that being said, man, what Tony Khan did with All In, it definitely broke records. And from the business side of AEW and pro wrestling, and for the fans, yeah, it was absolutely, they passed expectations. 100%. With that being said, was there some downfalls with All In? Yeah. And I'm not going to say that the matches weren't good. I'm not going to sit here and say that. The matches were awesome. But one of the things I wanted to touch base with you guys on is what happened with this whole CM Punk Jungle Boy incident that happened at All In. And this is one of the bad things I must say about that happened at All In, which is honestly a damn shame that it happened. Jack Perry made that comment before Hook landed that fisherman suplex on the windshield of the limousine. And there was a little, heat between Jack Perry and CM Punk, I believe a week or two ago at Collision, when Jack Perry approached Tony Khan and I believe CM Punk about a spot in the match that would be using, glass. And it seems like Jack Perry was turned down and he, was told not to do that spot. Maybe it was too dangerous, so on and so forth. But during that match that, Perry had with Hook at All In, Perry made a comment pertaining to the glass in the limousine, telling people to take, it's glass, take a break, yada, yada, yada. And the comment was pretty much made towards CM Punk. I think that's, pretty evident. When Perry had lost his match and they, walked backstage, according to what I've read and what I've heard, CM Punk was waiting for Jack Perry to come backstage. Now, CM Punk was the next match on after Perry and Hook. So Punk was waiting for him backstage. Supposedly they got face to face, and Punk decided to choke, if you will, Jack Perry. That ain't a good look, man, on multiple levels. And I made this comment about CM Punk a while ago. But as of late, man, things are starting to add up and come to fruition about CM Punk, man. I do believe that CM Punk, gets a slap on the wrist backstage when it pertains to the politics and stuff like that. Yeah. If this altercation actually did happen and Punk ended up choking out Jack Perry backstage by Gorilla, Tony Khan's right there. So you're allowing this to happen. You're watching this happen. You're not being a boss and you're not shutting this down. Your best, only suitable option was to send Jack Perry home. CM Punk was still backstage, from what I understand, after Perry was sent home, and then eventually CM Punk was then sent home. Look, man, how do I put this? Because the thing of it is, I don't want to sound like a broken record, man, but it's the same old song and dance with CM Punk. And to be honest with you, it's kind of ironic because, here's his what? I don't know how many pay-per-views he's been back since he's been back with, Collision. It's their biggest show of the year, and you're going to act like that. This couldn't have waited until you guys got back into the States on a Dynamite or something like that, and you guys could have hashed all this stuff out. No, you guys, Punk decided to put hands on Jack Perry and choke Jack Perry for the comment that he made during the match that he had with Hook pertaining to the glass that was involved in the match that he had with Hook with the limousine. Look, man, there's ways of handling things and there's ways not to handling things, and that's definitely a way of not handling that situation. It's just not. And my thing is, and I'm sorry, but if this happened when Perry went right backstage, that's right around Gorilla. So Tony Khan had to be there to watch this altercation take place. And nothing happened. The only thing that happened was that Jack Perry was sent home, Punk stayed, and then eventually Punk was sent home. There needs to be consequences to this man's actions. And it really comes down to this. Who is running the show here? Who's running AEW? Is it Tony Khan or is it CM Punk? And as of late, man, it seems like it's more about CM Punk than it is Tony Khan. And honestly, it's going to become a problem. I mean, no matter how you look at it, whether it's the women's division that's crumbling or, there's issues with CM Punk, it's going to cause an issue every single time, man. And it's going to make that locker room even worse than what it is. Does CM Punk bring fans in? Sure. Does he sell merchandise? Sure. But Tony Khan needs to be a boss. And I understand that he's a super fan of professional wrestling. I understand that. And we all accepted that when when they all created AEW. But at this point, man, it's like what extent? If you're the CEO of this company and you're telling everybody that you're the CEO, you're the boss of this company, but you're letting stuff like this continuously slide, it's not a good look, not only on Tony Khan, but the company. And honestly, superstars backstage, if they keep seeing this and getting word that CM Punk is causing all these issues, but then gets a slap on the wrist, it's not going to make a lot of talent want to stay with AEW. Like, I know the Elite just re-signed their contract and restructured their contract. I understand that. But it also gets talented free agents that are on the market not really too inclined to want to come over to AEW because the issues that are happening backstage and issues that are pertaining to the women's locker room, as well as the whole CM Punk issue. And this CM Punk thing has been going on for a while. I mean, he made comments about Adam Page recently, or even the EVPs. He made comments about recently just got into it with Jack Perry again at your biggest pay-per-view of all time since your company's been in existence, and you're going to pull stuff like this. This stuff could have waited. And I personally, as my personal opinion, I hope CM Punk does get reprimanded for this a little bit. I mean, this has to stop. You have to make an example out of CM Punk, because if not, he's going to continuously keep doing this day in and day out. I understand, he's a veteran and he's trying to help the young guys in professional wrestling. I get that. And the advice he's giving these other wrestlers, okay, it's advice. It's not mandatory. It's not a requirement that they need to listen to what this guy's saying and do what he says. He ain't the boss, man. He's not. And this stems back from the issues that Punk had with Adam Page, where Page wasn't taking his advice and doing what Punk was saying. Punk ain't the boss, man. Some of these guys want to learn on their own and make their own mistakes. And that's sometimes what you need to let them do. There's egos backstage, whether it's the men's locker room side of AEW or the women's side of the locker room. There's egos, but Punk can't be choking people out backstage because he didn't follow your advice. So because he didn't follow your advice, you want to go ahead and choke him out. Not only choke him out, but on the biggest pay-per-view of the company's existence. So I'm hoping that Tony Khan, for once, will be a boss and reprimand CM Punk for what the actions that he did at All In. There needs to be a punishment. There needs to be a consequence to the man's actions. And if not now, then when? Because it's getting to a point where it's getting absolutely ridiculous. The fact that he can do what he wants and says what he wants and nothing happens. It's just a slap on the wrist when everybody else is getting sent home, like Jack Perry did at All In, or people are getting sent home from a show they're supposed to be scheduled for, but they had an altercation with CM Punk and they're told to be at the arena and then sent home as soon as they show up in the arena. And that happened a couple weeks ago when that news came out about CM Punk, when the whole Ryan Nemeth issue, him sending home Christopher Daniels and Matt Hardy from the Collision shows, even though they were they were supposed to be there for the shows to have matches. Adam Page was supposed to have cut a promo, and he was told to go home as well. So I mean, again, who is running the show here? Is it Tony Khan or is it CM Punk? Speaking of Tony Khan, just like usually 9 times out of 10, AEW always has a post-media scrum for all of AEW pay-per-views. So I actually watched the entire, the whole all-out post-media scrum, and it was actually quite interesting, man, to be honest with you. Everybody knows that All Out is literally a week away, or actually this Sunday, to be honest with you, is All Out. So I watched the media scrum, and a lot of things came out to fruition during this media scrum. So I took some notes on this, and I kind of wanted to get your guys' takes on this and kind of give you guys some info if you guys didn't watch the media scrum and, let y'all know what's going on. So it was announced that All In will return to Wembley Stadium next year, August 25th, 2024. So we are returning to London at Wembley, August 25th, 2024 for All In, which is absolutely awesome. Tony Khan also mentioned that he wants to continue the schedule for how he's produced All In and All Out. And what that means is that what you're seeing, this week, where you have literally All Out and then a week later you have All In, Tony Khan wants to continue that business format and that schedule with these two pay-per-views for the foreseeable future. Now, am I a humongous fan of that? No, I'm not. I think it's great for All In. I think, having it at Wembley, I think the fans in England were absolutely awesome. And honestly, were the highlight of the night, in my honest opinion. They were absolutely awesome. The fans in England are awesome. especially during that CM Punk Samoa Joe match. Man, Samoa Joe was so much over in Wembley. It was unbelievable. But with that being said, it was announced that All In will return to Wembley Stadium next year, August 25th, 2024. And at All In and All Out will have the same schedule like this year, again next year. So looking forward to that as well. But I do think it might hurt All Out as far as booking for the show and obviously build leading up to All Out. Another big announcement that Tony Khan made during the post-media scrum that kind of shocked me was the announcement of a new pay-per-view that's coming in October for AEW. Tony Khan was asked about, at the post-media scrum, was asked about future pay-per-views and are they going to have more pay-per-views in their pay-per-view format going into next year. Well, Tony Khan made an announcement that on October 1st, Tony Khan announced that on October 1st there will be a pay-per-view known as Wrestle Dream that will take place in Seattle on October 1st. Now, what I learned about this show is that Tony Khan created this show, Wrestle Dream, in a tribute to the late great Antonio Inoki, which is Inoki is an absolute legend, New Japan legend, and a great wrestler, fantastic wrestler, had phenomenal matches throughout his career. Tony Khan had made this, this announcement about Wrestle Dream based upon the fact that he wants to pay tribute to the late great Antonio Inoki. I'm all for it. I think not only that, it's going to take place in Seattle, Washington. So right after All Out, we're going to have build leading up to Wrestle Dream. But with that being said, because Tony Khan wants to pay tribute to Antonio Inoki, Tony Khan also said that he will have, or try to have at least, New Japan talent on this show going up against AEW wrestlers as well in the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view that's going to take place October 1st in Seattle. So it's almost like a Forbidden Door kind of format. That's kind of what I think he was hinting around about. I'm all for it, man. I think it's going to be absolutely awesome. I love the name of the pay-per-view, Wrestle Dream. And again, it is a pay-per-view. It will take place October 1st in Seattle. So that's right after, not right after All Out, but it's the next pay-per-view after All Out. So you don't have to wait until November for another pay-per-view. With that being said, speaking of November, Tony Khan also announced that Full Gear will take place November 18th on a Saturday in LA. So again, Full Gear was announced for November 18th in Los Angeles, and that will take place in November for Full Gear. Other thing too that I took notice in is that there was and again, I don't know the person's name who made, asked Tony Khan this question during the post-media scrum, but Tony Khan was asked during the media scrum, why was there only one women's match booked for All In? And will there be more women matches on pay-per-views in the future? And it seemed like Tony Khan was just trying to avoid the question. Look, man, there's been a lot of talk about the women's locker room as of late and what's been going on with AEW. The women's locker room side right now is just in shambles. Do I believe there should have been more than one women's match on the card? Yes, I do. I'm not going to sit here and deny and say that there should have been more than one women's match. There should have been. I truly believe that. Whether it was Chris Statlander or something like that of that nature, sure. So yeah, I'm not going to deny the fact that that they shouldn't have put on more women matches. No, they should have, 100%. But I just felt like Tony Khan was just trying to beat around the bush as far as the question was concerned. He really didn't truly answer the question. The other thing that I took notice of is Orange Cassidy was also a part of this post-media scrum. He was also involved in the Stadium Stampede match. That was absolutely awesome as well. But Orange Cassidy made a comment that kind of resonated with me, and I didn't really truly think about it until after he had said it. Orange Cassidy is currently the AEW International Champion, I'm sorry. And Orange Cassidy made a comment to Tony Khan and said, well, it's kind of ironic how here we are in Wembley, in London, England. I am the current AEW International Champion, and I have not defended that belt in England. And it seemed like Orange Cassidy was kind of irritated with Tony Khan due to the fact that he did not defend his belt in England. Which set up a little bit of a storyline, if you will. It looks like Orange Cassidy will face off against Penta this week on Dynamite, and the winner of that will face Jon Moxley for the International Championship. If Orange Cassidy wins, he'll face Moxley to defend his belt, or Penta will defend the International Championship against Jon Moxley at All Out. But I kind of thought that was kind of interesting, man, that Orange Cassidy had made that comment because, to be honest with you, he's not necessarily wrong. But all in all, man, All In, did it deliver? Yeah, it delivered. I will stand behind that. I think it definitely delivered in what Tony Khan was trying to do. And the numbers speak for themselves, man. I mean, they had, almost 82,000 people. They were breaking records Sunday, man. It was awesome. The way the stage structure was set up, the ring, the fans. And again, the fans in England were absolutely awesome, man. Absolutely awesome. Definitely highlight of the show. A couple title changes. Saraya becoming the new AEW Women's Champion. The Acclaimed becoming the new Trios Champions. MJF retains. And MJF and Cole become the new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. So, a lot of things happened at All In, man. It was a solid show. And we're going to get that again next year, August 25th, 2024. All In will return to Wembley Stadium. Definitely looking forward to that. And again, the big announcement that on October 1st, Tony Khan announces that Wrestle Dream will be on pay-per-view for October 1st in Seattle, which pays tribute to the late, great Antonio Inoki. Definitely looking forward to that pay-per-view in October. But again, man, it was a solid show. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a bad show. Do I think it's the greatest show of all time? No, I don't. But do I think it was the best show AEW's put together up to this point? Yeah, it's definitely up there, man. I truly believe that. There was a lot of magical moments that happened on Sunday, memorable moments that happened on Sunday, and I look forward to what's going to happen next with AEW, man. Obviously got All Out coming up this Sunday, building some more storylines. You got Wrestle Dream right around the corner as well in October, early October. So like I told you guys, man, AEW was going to go full steam ahead this summer, and I made that comment about that months ago, that AEW was going to go full steam ahead this summer and put on great matches, memorable moments, and this was the exact definition of that. This was pretty much, AEW Tony Khan kicking down the door, and what they did and what they produced in All In. That, to me, that's what it was, and it made a statement. Obviously, Tony Khan wants to be in the market over there in England. And England has some diehard wrestling fans, man. They love professional wrestling. And, Tony Khan wants to make it a point that they want to be the headliner in the wrestling market over there in England. And honestly, for what he did in All In, doesn't seem like AEW is not far from being the top dog over there in England as far as professional wrestling is concerned. So I'm all for it, man. I'm absolutely all for it. And again, it was a fantastic night. Yeah, there was a little bit of hiccups, especially pertaining to CM Punk and the whole Jack Perry incident, which again is still under investigation. And, I made my comments about CM Punk, man, and I still stand behind it. I think CM Punk needs to be punished, man, for what he's done. There needs to be consequences to this man's actions. And until Tony Khan becomes a boss and actually reprimands CM Punk for what he's doing, that CM Punk's going to continuously keep doing this, and CM Punk's literally running the show. And I think it's more evident now than it has been, because there's been so many incidents now that pertains to CM Punk since he's been back, even with Collision, and nothing's happened. And I don't think anything will. And I'm hoping, like I said, I'm hoping that Tony Khan will be a boss and reprimand CM Punk for what he's done, especially in this incident with Jack Perry at All In. But it's still yet to be seen, man. It's still under investigation. We're going to see what happens between Punk and Jack Perry. And I look forward to what's going to happen next with AEW, man. All Outs this weekend on Sunday in Chicago. Still matches to be announced for the card. So it should be interesting, man. I really want to see what happens with AEW at All Out. So with that being said, this is my review of AEW's All In. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.